Let it shine, let it shine.
Tomorrow, I'm probably not going to be here. You are probably going to have a video to watch and a few things to discuss from the video. Have fun. On next week, I've already told you this, just to make sure, if your name's A through K, you're coming to school on Monday and Tuesday. If you're L through M on your last name, or L through Z, you're coming on Wednesday and Thursday. Those will be your test days. They're, from my understanding, they're going to be long test days, meaning, if you come Monday and Tuesday, I'll only see you on odds are on Mondays and Wednesdays. So you guys will either test on Monday or Wednesday next week, depending on your name. And so on Monday and Wednesday, 7th period should be extra long. What else? Tomorrow night, your extra credit is due. That means, at the end of the day tomorrow, I will not take that late. So make sure you get it in. If you have it, look like a lot of y'all already got stuff in, which is fantastic.
I still have to take my stuff to the recycling bin tonight.
Super. Don't get murdered. What else? Next week, on the days that you are not here at school, there are really 3 days that you were supposed to be here that you're not. I would say there's a few things that I've got for you to do. 1, study. 2, finish the math that we don't get to today. 3, you're going to calculate your miles per gallon in your vehicle. If you don't drive, you can do it in your parents' vehicle. And then 4, if you get a chance, I would think the break, either next week or over the break, would be a good time for y'all to do a field experience for the third 9 weeks. You can go somewhere, you can see something that you don't normally see, relate it to what we talk about in class. Just make sure you tell your parents. One of my students turned one in and said they drove around 40 minutes looking for the Arboretum, which is right there by the VA, which I don't know how they got lost, but who knows. Who knows? So those are all things that you can work on next week that we will reference. Oh, and one other thing. I would like for you guys to talk to your parents and see if you could look at one of their recent power bills and look at the kilowatt usage in your home. So you should see kilowatt hours and how much they have used, and bring that with you when you come back in January, whenever we show back up. Okay. What?
The 5th.
We'll see if it's the 5th, hopefully. I think it's the 5th because we have to come back on the 4th. I think we've only got 1 day.
At this point, it's going to be. We're not coming back.
A lot of schools have went to the 11th because they're giving everybody at least 10 days after
Christmas.
New Year's Eve
Which is a great idea.
Yeah, that's a great idea. We should do that.
to make sure that anybody that's partied after New Year's Eve
Had to show the sign.
hadn't showed any signs. But if we were going to do that, we probably would have done it after Thanksgiving and not showed up until the first of this week. Whatever. I doubt that will happen for our school system, though. E, fossil fuels. Turn to page 320. The combustion of fossil fuels is a chemical reaction between the fuel and oxygen that yields what? What do we get when we burn coal, oil, natural gas? Energy, and what's a byproduct of that process?
Heat.
Well, that could be also energy. What else? Usually we're getting heat. It's our main form of energy. Unless you're... Carbon dioxide, good. Anytime you burn something that was living or is living, it's going to give off carbon dioxide. Wood, witches, coal... Anything that was or is living will react with oxygen and give off CO2 if it is burned, and energy, which is basically the process that we're undergoing in our bodies now that we would call what? Cell respiration. Very good. Where you have large amounts of hydrocarbons, like in fats, They react with oxygen that you're breathing in, and it gives off energy and CO2. Okay? Water is also a byproduct, but anyway. So, very good, Antonice. Any questions on that one? So that's what we're getting out and how we're getting it. Number 18, energy from fossil fuels is produced by burning those fuels to generate heat, which then blank. So how do we actually go from our friendly lump of coal here that we get for Christmas to electricity coming out of the ceiling? Sarah? How do you go from coal to electricity? These are things you should ask yourself.
We have to burn the coal.
You got what?
Burn the coal.
Okay, we burn it. Does that make electricity?
No.
Well, how do we... I just turned on the heat. Hold on. Okay, we burn it. What else? What's next?
Capture the gas that comes out of it.
You're going to capture the gas that comes out of the coal?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about that. Which gas are you capturing, and how's that making electricity?
Methane.
Methane's coming out of coal.
No.
You went down a rabbit hole that Alice would have stayed away from. Good. Let's turn over to 323.
Wait, was that right?
No, not at all. On 323, coal, oil, natural gas, whatever you burn, wood. To generate electricity, this is the process. I mean, they don't do this for wood because it requires lots and lots of wood. You burn it, and like we said the other day when we watched that video on the coal ash ponds, where are they usually located? Where are most power plants like that located?
Near a water source.
Near a water source. Good. So you burn it. It heats up water from your water source. It turns that water into steam. The steam rises, goes through a pipe, whatever, and then at some point in the pipe, there's like a turning wheel. We call it a turbine, okay? And so as the steam pushes through there, it turns the turbine, which is hooked up on the outside of that to a generator. The simple and the only version I know of this is generators are made by magnets and electrical coils that are wrapped around them. And when they spin, it basically like throws electrons loose and the electrons move. What do we call the movement of electrons? Electricity. There was an entire class this morning, Sarah, that couldn't figure that out. It's very disappointing. So, yes, the movement of electrons is electricity. And so that's how we get electricity. Same thing applies with nuclear, where you heat up water, turn it into steam after a nuclear reaction, a controlled one. What about in town, in Tuscaloosa, where do we have a power plant? We have one really close to town. Nope, that's a refinery.
Isn't there one by that bridge? I don't know where it is.
By that one word.
It's like down, like,
The bridge next to Black Warrior?
yeah.
Are you thinking of Nucor? Nucor is a steel mill. That is not a power plant. But there is pipes and steam coming out of it.
Is
So
it down there by like Pico and stuff?
good. It's over in Holt or over past Holt. So we have two dams that are here in town. One is kind of below town. If you drive over Lake Lurleen, or not Lake Lurleen, Lurleen Walls Bridge, like by downtown, and you look downriver toward the west where the sun sets, then you see like a little dam where the water kind of droops over it. Or if you go out toward Kentuck and take a left, you can actually ride out to it. That's one. That dam is just blocking water. There's one over in Holt that actually produces power. So you can, and this is probably a good field experience for you guys, is you can drive out to it there's a Holt Dam park or something like that. It's out past like the yacht club, and you go past North River and all the rich people out there and the rainbows and unicorns, and you go out past Deer Lake Park, and like overlooking the dam and the Black Warrior River, there's this big hill, and you can park up there, and there's picnic tables and stuff. It's a good place to go carry your significant other tomorrow and have a picnic and tell them you love them and watch the beautiful scenery, watch the electricity be generated at the dam. So how is the electricity generated in a hydroelectric dam like that?
The water. Is it the same way?
It heats up stuff. We heat up stuff with the water.
No, the movement of the water. Yeah.
Water moves through the dam, and as it does, it turns the turbine, which turns the generator. Good. And so I would be curious to know how much of our electricity actually comes from that dam. That'd be interesting to note. Because there's a couple of steam plants that they used to burn coal, that burn natural gas now, that are north of town an hour or so. And I imagine that most of their energy probably goes toward Birmingham, if I was to guess, because it's so big. So I'd be curious to see how much we get from there. 19. Oh, well, turn steam, yeah. Number 18, we got all that. Number 19, humans use a variety of methods to extract fossil fuels from the earth for what? What are we using fossil fuels for?
Oil. Or,
We're using it for oil?
no, like, yeah.
Energy. I gotta get a haircut. Energy, okay, for what purposes? If the three main purposes you could break this down into, I think. One would be
Heat your home.
electricity / heating. Probably we could put both those together. What else? Transportation.
Yeah.
Good.
Transportation.
And then production of goods.
Yeah.
If you think about stuff like producing steel, producing aluminum, anything that requires a high heat where you've got to melt stuff, you need something with a high heat capacity. And sometimes it may be natural gas. In a lot of places it's coal. Coal is cheap, it's easy to find, has a high heat content. If you go out to Tannehill and watch the blacksmith out there work, I don't know, have you ever seen him? I'm going to go to Tannehill on one of their trade days. The blacksmith out there, he's burning coal and he's turning those little, there's a pedal thing that he uses to bring air in, and it heats up the metal, like gets it red hot, and then he hammers on it. It's pretty cool. Number 20, hydraulic fracturing, aka fracking, that we watched in the Gaslands video, can cause groundwater contamination and the release of blank.
Fossil fuels.
What is found, more specific, sometimes around where people are fracking? Well, what is sometimes leaked where people are fracking? We saw it a little bit in the video, natural gas. And we're going to, depending on how far we get today, there's one person in the video who had a very, very large natural gas leak because they contaminated his well. He went to dig another well, and when he did, they must have hit a huge natural gas seam, and like this thing blew out and was just spewing the most massive amount of natural gas you could out for about 3 days before they capped it off. And there's no telling how many, they estimated how much natural gas went into the atmosphere. Now, what's the problem with natural gas in the atmosphere? Methane is?
Bad.
Bad for the atmosphere.
Bad in what way? It's a very potent,
It's very flammable.
that too, but it spreads out up in the atmosphere. It's a very potent greenhouse gas. It is much worse, like molecule for molecule, than CO2. So in terms of greenhouse gases and climate change, methane is not good. Yes, ma'am?
So how is the natural gas stored underground? Is it just pockets of air, or is it inside the rock?
It's pockets of gas that form around as those swampy materials long ago formed. Like a lot of times you have this non-porous rock, and then the oil or coal forms underneath it. And then so as that breaks down, a lot of times part of that breakdown, it gives off some natural gas. Kind of like when you eat food, you might break down and give off some natural gas. So, and then that forms in little pockets. And so they're trying to dig down and hit those pockets to extract it. A lot of times it's just but it's not, you can't imagine underground as being like pools of oil or water or whatever. Usually it's found within the rocks. And so you have to pump it out. Just like a well, you dig down, there's not a pool of water most of the time. You've got water that's in the rocks and it seeps out and then you pump it out. So when you hit one of those pockets, that gas naturally is going to float up and go up higher. Good question. So we're going to continue with that. One term I want you to add in here is environmental justice. Now, I'm sure you guys heard a lot about social justice issues this summer, and by all means, I'm not going to get into that. But we will talk about environmental justice, or more so, I guess, environmental injustices, because those are things where typically people who are poor are usually subjugated to living in areas with more environmental problems. The people in the video, where were they living that they had to deal with the fracking issues?
Iowa or Indiana or something?
Well, most of them are Appalachia or out west, but in general, what do they have in common? Rural, poor areas, yes. And so if somebody does come in and, let's say, wreck your groundwater supply, you're probably not going to have a lot of money to hire lawyers and to do something to them. That's not something that most of us have, resources. So that's an issue. Or let's say you live in an urban area, Damar, and you're poor, you don't have a lot of money, you're looking for a place to stay. You're more likely to find somewhere to stay that's cheaper in an area of town that maybe has more factories, more pollutants, more of those giant power lines. You're worried about zapping your brain. Places that are environmentally less friendly and less safe. So we would call those environmental injustices, okay? That people, because of their economic status, have to deal with more environmental issues than ones that don't. So those are things that we'll talk about in the video today. So if you'll get out your math problems, you were supposed to do number 3. We're going to work on 3, 4, and the first part of 5. And does anyone in here know how to calculate your miles per gallon on your car?
No.
Like by hand? You already know yours. Why? Because it says it?
How much it gets?
It says it on the screen?
I don't know.
How do you know how much it gets?
My mom told me.
Well, what if she was lying to you? What if she told you wrong? Just to make you feel better about yourself. Well, you're going to check her and see.
It must be because you drive a Prius, right?
Yeah.
All right. So, number 3. Y'all get this one finished? Damar, what'd you get for number 3?
Number 3, I got. It seems too easy. Is it 60,000 watts? I mean, 60,000 watts.
60,000 watts?
Yeah, is it wrong?
That's not wrong. Typically, though,
Is it 60 kilowatts?
yeah, so typically we put energy in kilowatts. So when I ask you guys for homework to see if you can find out what your energy usage is at home, it should say on the power bill kilowatt hours. So pretty simple here. Incandescent bulbs are what type of bulbs?
The average.
Yeah.
They're the old school bulbs, the ones that get hot to like the touch. Usually those are the ones we had forever. And then there was a transition to fluorescent bulbs, like the little curly Q ones that back there by Andrea, or these are fluorescent in the ceiling here. So they used a lot less energy, but they got mercury in them. So when you cracked them open, mercury was going everywhere, and they switched now to LED bulbs. That's the new thing that most everybody has. They're less expensive. They also use a lot less energy, similar to fluorescent ones. And I think you can adjust them better than you can the fluorescent bulbs. That's why we kind of went away from that.
Damar really just said, I have a color changing bulb at my house.
I do. I have a. Yeah, I have a color changing like light bulb, and I have an Alexa. It's hooked up. So all I gotta be like is Alexa, change it to red, and then my room just be like.
I could see you being one of those people that has that type of bulb. All right, so you use it for the life expectancy is 1,000 hours, and so you wind up with kilowatts and hours, and you multiply them together, and like you said, 60,000 watts or 60 kilowatts is how much energy it would use in its lifetime. And then all you have to do is multiply it times 0.08, because it's 8 cents for every kilowatt hour, and you get, I think, was it 480?
Yes.
Not 420 tomorrow. 480. All right. So, any questions? Now, number 4 is basically the same thing, except we got to make a couple adjustments. Go ahead and do number 4 real quick. Number 4 should be easy. You can just use your phone if you want to.
I don't know.
No.
Okay, you can use that if you want to. Have you been eating oranges?
Have you smelled it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can.
You can
I thought either she had some orange perfume or something's wrong.
Perfume.
I told you I thought I had COVID the other day. I tell you I was in the shower. I couldn't taste anything. I was like, I got the COVID, and then I thought, oh yeah, I ate a bunch of hot pizza the night before and burned the inside of my mouth off. So that could explain it. And since I can smell those oranges, yeah, I'm still good. The sniffer's still good. Roof of my mouth is not. All right, so Andrea, number 4, we've got fluorescent bulbs like the one above you there. It's using 15 watts. What do we need to do with that 15 watts?
Convert it to kilowatts.
So watts to kilo, you move the decimal 3 places to the left, and it should be 0.015 kilowatts. And how long does it run?
10,000 hours.
10,000 hours. And you've got kilowatt hours, and you multiply that, and it should be 150. So that's how much you would expect that fluorescent bulb to use in its lifetime. And then, like I said, all you do is multiply that times 0.08. And that will give you the amount you use, which is, was that $12?
$12, yeah.
All right, $12 cost over the course of its life, using it for 10,000 hours. Pretty sweet. All right, any questions on that one? Now, who thinks they know how to calculate their mileage on their car? Like how many miles per gallon they're getting? The old-fashioned way. Now, I know some of this is on your computer. I don't know if I trust those computers. So we need to do this and check it to make sure your little computers are working properly on your car. So here's some steps, and this is one of your homework assignments for next week, how to calculate your mileage on your car. The funny thing is nobody's known how to do this today except like 4 people in 4th period. But the other classes, nobody's known how to do this. So first thing you got to do, fill up your car. Okay, fill up your car and reset your what? Odometer. So in case you don't know what your odometer is, on your dash, usually got a little button on there. You mash it, you hold it down, and it resets like the trip. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and it resets it to 0. So like if you go on a trip or something, you can see how far you went and just leave it. There's usually a couple of them. So you're going to fill up your car. You're going to reset it to 0. Okay, now, scientifically, to be as accurate as possible, you need to fill it up the same way every time. So normally when I'm filling up my car, I will like hold it in and let it go until it clicks, and then usually I mash it again until it clicks again, but whatever you do, just do it consistently. So you fill up your car, reset it to 0. Number 2, you drive. All right, so you're going to drive it. The more you drive it, the more accurate a reading you're going to get. So if you use like half a tank or 3/4 a tank, don't get too low and run out of gas and get murdered. But the more you use, the better, more accurate it's going to be. So drive it. Third thing you're going to do, you're going to go back to the gas station and fill back up the same way that you did to start with. Okay. Now, how are we going to know our miles per gallon, our MPG? What does MPG stand for?
Miles per gallon.
Which would also be written like this, miles per gallon. So how can we use this information to find this?
To find out how many miles you drove.
Okay, so how many did you drive? Let's say we ran 300 miles. Okay, so we got down low. And how are we going to get our gallons? What else we need to know?
How much money you, or how many gallons you put back in your car.
Yeah, so if we had it full and then we drove it and we had to fill it back up, we're going to know how many gallons was used during that 300 miles because it goes back to the same spot. So let's say it took 15 gallons to fill it back up.
Is there like, I don't think my car has like the number on it though.
Doesn't have what number? The odometer?
Like, yeah, mine just has little bars.
What?
Like you really have.
Little bars of what?
No, it's like a little button you push on your car and you like just.
I mean, I know a Prius is a battery. It has a battery, but you still have to have a mile reading, right? You have like where it says like you've been 50,000 miles or 100 or whatever. Yeah. So usually there's a button that you mash and like it'll have like 100,000 miles, but you mash it and then it goes to trip A, which you can start over to 0 to see how far you've went. So usually there's a little button on your dash somewhere you can mash in and hold, and it will reset that trip.
Yeah. I was saying the gas, but I think I know how to do it. I think I know.
You don't know when you fill up your gas tank?
No, I do.
You just fill it up till it goes click.
Yeah, I know how to get gas, but
You don't know how when you know how you have no gas left?
I do. I'm saying
You don't know how many miles you drove. Is that what you're saying?
I do know. I'm saying I don't know how many gallons I used up.
Well, that's why when you fill it up, it tells you how many gallons you put in your car at the gas pump.
Okay, never mind.
You know, when you're pumping the gas and there's a dollar amount, and then there's also a gallon amount beside it.
Yeah, I
No,
know that.
I didn't expect that from you.
It's fine. No, I know how to get gas. I promise.
No,
This confused me. No, I don't know.
she's.
Like, it doesn't tell you how much gallons.
Yeah, it says gallons. When you're at the gas pump and you pump the gas, it says how many.
Yes, I got it.
What?
How do you know how much
Gallons to put on.
We're about to find out.
Well, you just look at the screen. What does it say when you fill it back up? The first time, it does not matter how much you put in it. All you're doing is filling it up. That's your starting point.
Yes.
When you go back and fill it back up, that's what you need to know.
Okay.
Because that's how much gas that you used during that 300-mile period. So when you fill it up, if it took 15 gallons,
I got it.
then that's how much gas you used for that 300 miles.
Yeah. You got that.
What's I don't understand the
No,
question.
Reagan confused me. It's her
Nothing.
fault. I'm not confused.
All right, so in this scenario, you get 20 miles per gallon. Okay?
Yeah.
So I was going to have y'all video this, but then I remember you're not supposed to have your phone out the gas pump because sometimes those sparks cause fires, and then I'd probably get in trouble. All right, so just write it down. Any questions on that? Oh, let's do the first part. Let's do the first part of number 5 since y'all are, well, you know. All right.
Are you
Having
gonna
trouble?
call us dumb?
No, I'm on camera right now, so I can't say that. So, y'all are... Actually, Sarah's been on point today. Some other people I'm worried about. All right.
Says the
Happy
way.
restoration. What the heck? What's that supposed to mean?
Yeah, you've been on point too, Antonese. Good job.
So it's only been 2.
All right. Shh. No more comments. Damar, if you want to get your little merit badge, in number 5, what are we looking for? First part of number 5.
We're looking for how many gallons of gas?
Gallons of gas. Okay, so gallons of gas. That's what we're looking for. So gallons of gas has to be on top. Isabella, if gallons of gas has to be on top, where can we put gallons of gas on top out here? What information do we have where we can have gallons over here?
20 miles per gallon.
So, but how am I going to get gallons on top?
Wait. I don't know.
Damar?
Is it gallons at the top?
You got to have gallons on top because gallons on top in our answer. Reagan, you want to redeem yourself?
Can you just put 1 gallon on top and 20 miles on bottom?
Yeah, so there's 20 miles for every 1 gallon. Okay? And what do we need to cancel out now?
Miles.
Miles. So what do we know about miles?
10,000 miles.
We want 10,000 each year. So miles is going to cancel out. All we're left with is gallons of gas. And how much gas you use in a year?
I gotta clear my phone.
500.
Don't say it, Reagan. I was reading.
Reagan?
God, Reagan. All right, so the correct answer is 500 gallons. So that's how you would calculate that. Any questions?
No.
All right, ma'am?
500 gallons per year.
That's how many you use in a year. If you drive 10,000 miles and you're getting 20 miles per gallon, yeah. So before you get back, or by the day you get back, you need to finish the rest of this math. We'll go over it. You're going to see a lot of math on the test and probably have a math quiz. when we come back, so it's important you know how to do these. Do your miles per gallon, okay? And try to find out your kilowatt hour usage at home. I'll have to ask my wife, she does the power bill online, see if I can find out mine. So we'll have some power bills to compare. If they're too afraid to tell you the price, then just at least get the kilowatt hours. They shouldn't complain about that. All right. Gasoline.